Every year during cold and flu season, Michiganders all over the state flood their local grocery stores to pick up the essentials. And I'm not talking about cough drops or tissues. I'm talking about Vernor's ginger ale. That sweet, extra fizzy drink has been soothing our belly aches for years now, and while we love it here in the D, it's definitely not a Detroit exclusive anymore. And so, it got me wondering, who invented Vernor's ginger ale anyway? And what is it about ginger ale, and Vernor specifically, that makes us feel invincible to any cold or flu virus that crosses our path? Is it ginger's natural ability to soothe our bubbling bellies, or maybe it's that sweet fizz that hits your nose first when you take your first sip? So join me and let's take a look at some of the history behind Michigan's favorite pop. Welcome to Detroit History Heroes, a show where we explore the stories of some fantastic Detroiters. My name is Dean, and I work for the Detroit Historical Society, and today we're talking about James Vernor, the pharmacist who invented Vernor's ginger ale. Now, you might be asking yourself, Dean, why would a pharmacist be messing around with pop anyway? And the answer lies in that spicy little root that gives Vernor its signature flavor. Ginger. In fact, the UCLA Biomedical Library entry for ginger states, traditionally, the warming and aromatic properties of ginger led to its use for numerous indications. It is a digestant and carminative and was used for dyspepsia, bowel colic. Ginger has been recommended as an expectorant, and it is traditionally used in teas or soups to treat colds or bronchitis. Alright, so ginger is medicine. Or at least it was used in that way for a long time. So, in that case, it makes total sense why a pharmacist would have some interest in its uses. Enter James Vernor, the pharmacist responsible for bringing Vernor's ginger ale into the world. Now, James Vernor was born in Albany, New York on April 11, 1843, and moved to Detroit with his parents when he was a child, becoming one of the many families who traveled by the newly completed Erie Canal to get to Michigan. Vernor eventually started working at Higbee and Stern's drugstore in Detroit, and it was a time when pharmacies and drugstores would often have a soda fountain available in their location. See, pharmacies back then worked about the same as they do today, but instead of sitting around or wandering the aisles of your local CVS, you could sit down at the soda fountain and enjoy a tasty cherry soda or root beer float. In fact, that's still how pop gets made today. It's what happens every time you get a fountain drink at the movies or a restaurant. It wasn't unusual for a pharmacist like James Vernor to experiment with different ingredients and come up with something completely new. Pharmacists were trained to combine different herbs, botanicals, and compounds together to create medicine that we need to stay healthy. And every prescription that walks through the door is going to be a little bit different based on what a patient needs. Actually, it would look a little something like this. It's time for some flash footnotes. As you can see, we've got a mortar and pestle, a pill cutting board, and a cutting board in front of us. But first, we're going to take some of this willow bark in front of us here and scrape some of the powder off into our mortar and pestle. Willow bark has been an ancient ingredient used for pain relief for centuries and a commonly used ingredient in pharmacy practice. Along with the willow bark, the pharmacist would add a couple of other ingredients from his apothecary cabinet, including cinnamon and honey. Cinnamon to help cover up the bitter flavor of medicine, and honey to help pull all of the ingredients together into one consolidated piece of medicine. We're going to use this mortar and pestle here to mix and mash everything together until it forms a solid piece, kind of like this. But if you took this whole thing right now, all at once, you'd probably get really sick, so it's over to the pill cutter to get them all cut to size. These ridges on the board here create little lines on the medicine to perfectly portion every pill, so that we can cut out each dose individually. And there you go. Looking pretty good. With all that in mind, it makes total sense why a pharmacist like James Vernor would take to something like making pop, don't you think? Picture it. Detroit. 1862. James Vernor has just finished up one of his most recent experiments, a recipe for ginger ale. Now, ginger ale had been around for a while by that point, first coming to the US from Ireland, where it was invented by another pharmacist, Thomas Cantrell, around 1850. Instead of using yeast to ferment the drink into ginger beer, as was the usual standard, Cantrell instead mixed his ginger ale base with carbonated water, creating a non-alcoholic version of the drink. Vernor then saw the opportunity to add vanilla, spices, and other flavorings to his ginger ale base and sealed it away in an oak barrel when... Oh, what's that? Oh, it's the American Civil War. Vernor is called to serve in the Union Army as a hospital steward, and he excels in his work, eventually becoming the 2nd lieutenant of the 4th Michigan Cavalry. He serves in the Civil War up until its end in 1865, and when he returns to work at the Higbee and Stearns drugstore, he opens up the oak barrel he had left behind and finds that the aging process had turned it into something deliciously different. Get it? That's what Vernor's is deliciously different. And just like that, Vernor's ginger ale was born. Vernor would begin selling his creation at the soda fountain in Higbee and Stearns, eventually opening up his own pharmacy on the corner of Woodward and Clifford right around 1880. At first, Vernor's ginger ale was only available at the soda fountain, but word about the delicious drink soon spread all across the city, and business was booming. So much so, in fact, that Vernor decided to close down the pharmacy business in 1896. Instead, he opened up a new soda fountain located on Woodward just south of Jefferson, where he could concentrate all his efforts into his new pop business. However, Vernor wouldn't give up pharmacy work altogether. In fact, he was instrumental in founding the Michigan Board of Pharmacists, which still provides licensing to pharmacists all over the state. Vernor even boasted about having pharmacy license number 1. For years, Detroiters could only get Vernor's ginger ale from his soda fountain on Woodward, but Vernor, ever the entrepreneur, saw the opportunity to expand his business further by opening up an entire manufacturing and bottling plant dedicated to producing his ginger ale. Vernor's ginger ale was produced and bottled in Detroit for decades, soaring in popularity through the early 1900s and onward until it closed its doors in 1985. The company was then bought by the Dr. Pepper Corporation, and today they handle the production and distribution of the pop, which means that this little piece of Detroit has traveled far beyond the reaches of Michigan and, in a way, provides all those Michiganders across the country a little piece of home wherever they are. Today, Vernor's ginger ale is a staple in so many kitchens across the state, in part because of the way in which Vernor marketed his product. Recipe pamphlets were distributed showing Michiganders how to get more out of their ginger ale, and eventually Vernor's was used in marinades and sauces that showed up on dinner tables across the region. Queen of Soul Aretha Franklin even had her own twist on a Christmas honey-baked ham with a Vernor's ginger ale glaze. A Detroit legend supporting a Detroit legend. We love to see it. Now, it's important to note that Vernor's and other ginger ale brands never really make any medical claims about their products, but, you know, they don't really need to. Word of mouth has traveled so far about the alleged health benefits of drinking Vernor's that the company doesn't need to make any health claims at all. The fact is, there really isn't a whole lot of research into whether or not ginger ale does help protect us from cold and flu viruses. Many researchers chalk it up to our good old friend, the placebo effect, which means if you think a product is doing something, even if there's no proof or evidence, it might actually still do something. Might never matter, am I right? As much as I love Vernor's ginger ale, it would be irresponsible of me to sit here and say, if you drink Vernor's, you won't get sick. If you're feeling sick, please make sure you're drinking plenty of water in addition to your ginger ale, and get plenty of rest. Thank you for watching History Heroes. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Detroit Historical Society channel for more great stories about your favorite Detroiters. Let us know which Detroit history hero you want to know more about in the comments down below. If you want to know more about James Vernor or other Detroit stories, hang out with us online at DetroitHistorical.org. You can follow us on Twitter at DHSDetroit and Instagram at Detroit Historical. My name is Dean. This has been Detroit History Heroes, and I'll see you next time.